Electricity. It is a source of energy that produces light and heat and power for machinery, power tools and equipment. It is also probably the most dangerous. You can't see it, you can't smell it, and if you feel it, it's too late. Each year about 1,000 accidents at work involving electric shock or burns are reported, and around 30 of these are fatal. Even non-fatal shocks can cause severe and permanent injury. Shocks can also lead to falls from ladders, scaffold or other work platforms. Defective or damaged cables, plugs, sockets and equipment can all be the cause of an accident. Hazards on site include cables buried in the render or plaster, or in the cavity when installing cavity wall insulation, faulty equipment and appliances, and of course overhead cables. Exposed wiring, such as you might find in lofts, and poor condition of domestic wiring, and dangerous practices like using homemade fuses, and avoid using overloaded multi-sockets. We tend not to think about the nature of electricity, and we don't need to know all of the science, but it is worth considering some of the basics. Voltage is required to have a flow of electricity, and current is the rate of flow, while resistance is anything that resists the flow of electrical current. Some materials are good conductors, such as metal, while others, such as rubber, are poor conductors and offer higher resistance. The body has a certain amount of resistance to electricity. This demonstration using a multimeter measures the resistance to an electrical current, and it shows that when no resistance is applied between the terminals, the reading is 0. When the current is passed through the body, the resistance to the current can be seen. If the terminals are squeezed, the resistance is lower. And if water which conducts electricity is applied, the resistance of our skin is very much lower. Contact with electricity can result in burns to the skin and internal injuries. Shocks can lead to a disruption of the natural rhythm of the heart and cardiac arrest. It can also lead to respiratory failure and cause an involuntary muscular spasm that causes the hand to hold onto the live conductor. Injuries can also be caused by arc flash. And electrical faults are often the cause of fire in the workplace. Using electrical equipment in the wrong environment can also produce an explosion. The amount of harm suffered from contact with electricity will depend on how much current is applied and how much resistance is offered. You can suffer anything from a mild tingling sensation to death. There are also other factors, such as the path of the current. If it passes across the heart, the effects can be much more severe. If contact is light and brief, then the effects suffered should be less than if you took a firmer hold. A person's age and condition can also be a factor. There are several devices available to reduce the risk from electricity. A residual current device is a device that detects any current leakage that may make equipment live. The circuit is broken when a fault is detected. This protects the user. You should test it to make sure it works before you connect anything to it. Another way to reduce the risk is to reduce the voltage by using a transformer. It's designed so that if a fault occurs, the amount of voltage delivered would be as low as 55. Overcurrent protection, such as fuses, are used to protect the equipment from becoming overheated by excess current and do not offer protection from electrical shock to the user. Double insulated equipment offers more protection because there is less likelihood of a live conductor coming into contact with the body of the appliance. There are other methods and devices, such as circuit breakers and using safe extra low voltage, earth bonding, and of course isolating the equipment. Another way to reduce risk is to take preventative action, such as testing the installation of fixed wiring and portable appliance tests. However, user checks are just as important. You must ensure that any electrical equipment is in a safe condition before use. Do not use coiled extension leads or overloaded multi-sockets, as they could be the source of an electrical fire. Do not use any defective equipment and report the fault or damage immediately. When installing loft insulation, you must ensure that any lights penetrating the ceiling are not covered by insulation. And do not insulate over any cables that are 6mm or above, such as cooker or shower cables. Be aware of any exposed wires or terminals. A water leak in a loft can make large areas of the loft live, so exit the loft as quickly and as safely as possible, taking care not to hold onto anything that may conduct electricity. When installing cavity wall insulation, assess the property for buried cables by visually inspecting the area and use a cable detector. Be aware of any overhead cables or any cables or electrical services attached to or within the cavity wall. If you witness someone suffering an electric shock, do not try to move them, and switch off the power supply and call for assistance. If you cannot isolate the supply, then separate them from the source using a dry, non-conductive material. The victim may need to be resuscitated, call for emergency medical aid, and stay with the casualty until they arrive. We have considered how dangerous electricity can be, what the hazards are, and the harm it causes. Some important points to remember. Check electrical equipment before use. Do not use or let anyone else use any equipment that is defective and report it immediately. You must also report any equipment where the PAT test is overdue. Identify electrical hazards on site and where possible use a transformer, and where it is not, use an RCD.
Back in the 70s, late 70s, I was working for a company in Essex. We was doing a local authority contract for loft insulation, and we had an unfortunate incident in that one of the loft installers somehow managed to touch a live wire, and unfortunately he had a massive heart attack from it. The only reason that we managed to, or the guy that he was working with managed to get to him, he was working next door, and he heard him screaming through the wall, and he ran round and turned the power off, and they sent him to hospital, and unfortunately he never made it. He passed away. I never knew him that well. We'd been out drinking a couple of times, but he's only a young fella, mid-30s, family and wife, and he was, it's just so easy to accidents in a loft are just so easy. And electric, you can't see it, taste it or smell it, and it just bombed. It was something to do with the customer had done some DIY, and he had some vapor check board, which was like a silver foil board, and somehow he'd managed to turn one of the pipes live, and then Wayne touched it, and he couldn't let go of it. And as I say, it was only him screaming and his mate in the loft next door that I don't think the customer heard it for some reason. I don't know whether they was out the back, I don't know, but as I say, he was taken away, and he died in hospital from a massive heart attack.